Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment, for another Rapido Fuego review. This one is the new Joe Begos film. He has previously directed Bliss, that came out last year, which was a scuzzy LA vampire punk bit of craziness. Before that, The Mind's Eye, Almost Human. So yeah, he's got quite a resume that he has built for himself, and this is a 80s like throwback violent shoot 'em up, slash 'em up action film called VFW. That's right, man, and that's obviously abbreviation for Veterans of Foreign Wars, but this is another one of those flicks that is very much trying to give that 80s vibe in so many different ways, from just the gritty graininess of the film itself to the soundtrack that it's kind of metally at times, but then it also diverts into some very dope synthesizer stuff. And I mean, even the attire of our antagonists that are these like almost like punk rock drug dealer metalhead just crazy scuzzy biker types almost. I don't know, I mean, they're all clad in spiky leather and stuff like that, but you know, while it was presented by Fangoria, a horror film, this is not, and that's why I'm reviewing it here on Enfuegotainment as opposed to over on the horror show where you might have expected to see this, because you know, that's where we've done previous Joe Begos stuff like you know, Bliss, which we just recently reviewed over there. But this was an interesting film, especially for the elderly cast that they put together, which is awesome. I mean, you've got Stephen Lang, you've got Fred Williamson, Mike Cove, I believe his name is. You've also got William Sadler, who I was so happy to see in something again. And these guys all have dope chemistry together, you know, and they're really fun. And so they're supposed to be celebrating the birthday of one of their friends. They're all just hanging out at the bar, all these old guys at this, you know, this Veterans of Foreign Wars bar, 2494, I believe, if I remember the number correctly, which as they say in the end credits, is a real bar in Texas, or a real, like, you know, spot in Texas. I don't even know if it's a bar, but it's kind of probably got different zoning and stuff because it's a specific type of bar for, you know, a certain segment of people and whatnot. But anyway, long story short, so these dudes are all hanging out and they're supposed to close the place down early, go out and see some big fake boobies shook in their faces, which it makes you wonder with how run down the area of you know, this city, where you know, it's just dilapidated and spray painting everywhere, and you've got this junkie epidemic that's going down with you know, the just addiction to opioids, and the fact that people are looking for this new sort of drug, and it's this new street drug, and that's what everybody is using here in this film. And yeah, it turns into an element of struggle when this girl, whose sister is killed by the main drug dealer guy at the beginning of the film, goes and steals this brick of this crazy opioid-esque substance, and then she goes and stows herself in their bar, the VFW guys. And so essentially, like, kind of a selfish bitch, dare I say? You know, it's very... I know she was just probably looking for whatever place to go and hide out, but she inadvertently brings the conflict that she has started, you know, in trying to get revenge on this crazy punk rock metal drug dealer guy, you know, who is very, like, intriguingly, like, mustache twisty, you know, but ruthless in the same right. I mean, the scene where he throws some of the drug off the bridge and the girl jumps off and splatterhouse on the bottom. This is definitely a very gory film, which is why certain horror reviewers are probably covering it, but definitely not a horror film. That's why I'm showing off the stuff here. It's like, you know, there was a lot of 80s and 90s action that was ridiculously gory. Like, I mean, the end of Commando, for God's sake, where he's just mowing everybody down in crazy fashion. I mean, the 80s were very unapologetic in their gore, and that's very much what this is, despite being pretty much a pure action movie. There's not really a lot of horror elements, you know. And so yeah, the conflict comes because main drug dealer dude knows that the sister who stole the drugs is hiding out there, and it turns into a barricading yourself, making this VFW spot into like a fortress and trying to keep a bunch of drug-addicted crazoids from breaking in and stealing back the product. And that's really as simple as the setup is. This is, once again, Begos is really, really great at just doing this sort of low-budget filmmaking. And I mean, Bliss was made on a very low budget for great reason, just use of all of these like grimy bars and stuff that our pseudo-vampire girl is going around through. Mind's Eye is the only one of his that I have not seen, and I have seen that compared to Scanners by a lot of people. It's definitely one that I've long wanted to check out. So, I mean, he does a lot with little in this film, and the gore is great throughout. I mean, there's lots of axes to the head throughout this entire movie, and we get some decapitations, and we get some interesting... There's not as much gunplay as you would imagine. I mean, there's a decent amount of it, but, I mean, there's one interesting scene in particular where Stephen Lang's character, he's got like a double-barreled shotgun, and he's just trying to shoot at this big, huge, just crazy-looking biker guy, and he just keeps missing him, so... The gun gore isn't quite as prevalent as the slice 'em and dice 'em stuff in it, but all the performances are good. As I said, you know, Sadler, Fred Williamson, Stephen Lang, those three specifically are all great together, and amusing interplay, the shit talking, the fact that they've known each other for so long going back to their days in Nam. It's, yeah, it sets the mood, and it has solid acting. The villain is very on point and just, you know, brutal and ruthless, as I said. I don't really like the female character very much. I feel like, you know, not only does she selfishly, like, bring the conflict to these guys, but, yeah, she's kind of snooty and kind of, like, not even as initially appreciative of their assistance, and they try to, like, act like grandpas and, like, take care of her, and she's averse to it at first and stuff. Even, I don't know, just her acting and the way her character was written just didn't particularly do it for me. Actually, I thought the female villain with this big-ass, like, braided up hair that she has and stuff, she's pretty dope. She was, like, I don't know, these guys were very much something out of, like, that British film Doomsday. If anybody's seen that, there's kind of a Mad Max vibe, you know, Road Warrior to some of the attire and stuff as well. So it's got that crazy post-apocalyptic-y bikerness to it, which is where, when they're talking about going to, you know, the titty bar and stuff, I'm like, well, I mean, is there a nicer area of town where you're gonna go for that? Or if it's somewhere in that area, like, how nasty are these ladies gonna look? I don't know, but despite the simplicity of the concept, and it really just turns into, you know, fighting, some more guys, more waves of guys come, they kill more guys. Oh, George Wendt is in this as well, and he was also briefly in Bliss, so apparently Joe really likes throwing him in his movies, which is fun, because, you know, Norm is the shit, man. But, yeah, it's simple in its concept, and it does get a bit repetitive with another wave of guys come, and then the old-timers drink more, and then another wave of guys come, and then, you know, somebody from their crew is killed, and then they kill a ton more. It's a little silly in the fact that, I guess, yes, the justification is that these guys are, you know, trained, you know, army vets, and so despite the fact that they're a little grizzled at this particular point, I mean, they're still badasses at their core, so that's how they're able to mow down just like throngs of these guys over and over and over, where wave after wave comes. But, you know, that's the cannon fodder aspect of it, if you want to put it to that degree. But I was entertained by this movie, and I mean, great performances, fun soundtrack, a little repetitive and a little too simplistic in its approach, but I definitely was amused, entertained, and I dig this sort of throwback approach to movie making since I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, so I can appreciate it. And I know a lot of younger generations, you know, are down with it too, because they're still discovering stuff like RoboCop and things of that nature in this kind of dystopian, not too near future, which is what this seemingly dwells within. So yeah, VFW, another interesting one from Joe, man. I would recommend it if you're into this sort of like mindless, violent fun. So I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, where, yeah, trying to rev back up the channel. It was a little disheartening for a while with just being stuck at home, the self-quarantining, the craziness. But this is a different type of sickness going around and spreading that we see in this movie compared to the real-life horrors that we are enduring today. But this would definitely be the kind of film that would be just a nice mindless diversion from all of that, and would kind of show you that if you're feeling trapped, these guys were trapped in a much more dire situation, if we're going to be fair there. So yes, lots of other reviews up on this channel for you to check out. If you want stuff that goes from this sort of violent action to full-on horror, go over to youtube.com/thehorrorshow channel. That's where we do at least 1 episode a day, sometimes 2. And yeah, I mean, lots of reviews of crazy, you know, horror, violent, you know, whateverness from all decades, you know, from, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up through the current day. Also trailer reactions, video game let's plays, unboxings. We are trying to stay vigilant with the content. We have a lot stockpiled there, and we look forward to bringing it to all of you. And like, share, and subscribe here. Porfa y gracias. I'm, as of this filming, only 50 subscribers from being at 1,000. This is a channel that, you know, we're at like 32-something thousand on the horror show, and that's been a labor of love for about 6 years now. But this was a channel that I disregarded for a while, and in the last year tried to get back to, and I'm trying to build to that 1K so that I can start doing some live streams, super chat, which would be greatly appreciated, any sort of attention, and just, you know, donation in that regard. But lastly, every Monday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on the Willis Greedia YouTube channel. Show Business is a live show that we had done for a while. CP is showrunner over there, Chauncey K. Robinson, from My 2 Cents of Nonsense. We're having to kind of retool the show because we can't really talk about weekend box office numbers and make predictions for the following anymore. Trying to see about looking at old years in cinema, looking at I don't know, just film delays that we're seeing. There's not much new news because everything is being taken off the release board, which is really disheartening for us as film reviewers. But, you know, it's just the world is changing, and the world of Hollywood and filmmaking is changing as well. A lot more is going to be going directly to your homes, VOD, which is where you can find this one right now. It's also at Redbox, which is where I picked it up. So yes, stay tuned to the social medias of everybody for that so you can stay informed. And yeah, it's tough to divert your eyes from Twitter and just growing numbers of just real scarific stuff that's over there. But, you know, gracias once again for tuning in to this little diversion here. I'm Enfuego. Y'all have been awesome. And until the reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. But I hope that we get to share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. Peace, peeps. Stay safe.